My name is Kevin Luchmun, and we are currently backstage once again at Luchmun Studios. And this is Backstage with Kevin Luchmun. This is a podcast talking about lifestyle, music, photography, and all things creative. Guys, welcome to Backstage with Kevin Luchmun.
Hi guys, my name's Kevin Luchmun and we're here backstage at Luchmun Studios. And today my guest sitting in the chair is Mr. Sheriff Mehmet. So Sheriff is a barber, he's an educator, and he's also the founder of MV Barbers London, which he has in Covent Garden and Chingford. So welcome, Sheriff.
Hi Kevin, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming here. So today really just wanted to have a chat about just life and kind of like yourself, your journey through barbering, because I know that you're third generation, which you will touch on in a minute, and really just your whole journey from what it's like having barbershops and obviously how we're getting on in this situation of COVID. So
Okay.
Do you want to just give a little introduction on yourself and your journey into barbering?
Yeah, so I've pretty much been barbering for way over 20 years now. I got into barbering with my family because my great uncle was a barber. My uncle was a barber who was the guy who actually taught me how to do barbering. So I literally started off barbering. I was in the barber shops from about the age of 12 years old. Just obviously like everyone else, sweeping up, just helping shampooing and just working for tips and stuff like that. So the journey was, it wasn't actually my plan to become a barber. Many people go to me, what did you want to be when you was young? And honestly, I actually wanted to be a racing driver. That was just...
Oh really? Into the cars?
Yeah, just into cars. I'm still into cars now. So I was just like, barbering was on the plan until careers officer came round at school and went like, it's time to pick your college or, say where you want to go next. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a barber. And it's quite funny because I never forget the conversation with the careers officer who was also my English teacher, because he actually advised me not to work for my uncle, and your uncle wasn't always going to be there for you, and not put me off, but basically try to convince me to go in further education and study something else. And it was really funny because years later, he happened to be driving past my uncle's shop, which was relocated in a different area from we originally was in White Hart Lane, Tottenham, to then going into Walthamstow, and he actually stopped in for a haircut. And it was years on. I mean, I was about 20, 22 at the time, and this teacher actually came in and he was like, so you made it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite, I didn't really want to go into barbering. I just fell into barbering, to be honest. And I found out I was good with my hands, and just that's how I got into the barbering.
Nice. So then obviously working for your uncle, how was it back then? Because like you said, you've been barbering now for over 20 years. So, it'd be quite interesting to kind of know what the process was back then compared to what it's like now.
Okay, so if we went on the lines of let's call them apprentices, which we would call juniors, I mean, it was much more disciplined, it was much more strict. There was even the discipline factor of the way you dressed and the way you looked, and pretty much you weren't really allowed to speak like a lot of young apprentices nowadays just think they can jump in on your conversation with your client. I mean, that was a no-go area. I mean, if the barber and the client was talking about something, you wasn't allowed in on the conversation. So it was very disciplined, it was very strict. And the thing that I try to implement when I'm actually teaching some of my juniors or my apprentices in the barbershop is I try and implement some of the stuff that I was taught when I was, trying to learn barbering. And that would be I would have to shadow either my uncle or some of the other barbers whilst they were cutting hair. Mm-hmm. And it would be funny when I'm shadowing my uncle, because he would be like, you know, you've got to shadow everything I do, but you've got to pass me my comb, you've got to pass me my clipper attachment or my razor, and you know, you had to pass him his tools. And if he happened to be, this is crazy, if he happened to be in a bad mood because next door, 2-3 doors away was a bookies, and he lost money on the horses or the dogs, they'd literally bet on anything. Mm. He would play tricks with us. So like where you knew he would be taking, you know, from his number one, he might be taking his number two. He would, you know, he would change what he's doing just to, you know, show that he wasn't concentrating. Or if you happen to look outside, because we was on a main road, and lose concentration, you know, you'd get a flick with a comb or something like that. So it was
always on top of you, and just make sure you're doing what you needed to do.
And very observant in the mirrors, in if you was actually watching and concentrating and stuff like that, which I don't really think a lot of apprentices have nowadays, and don't even appreciate that, you know, they're allowed to shadow you the way they do shadow you nowadays.
So then from that, so how long was you working with your uncle to then thinking, okay, I want to get my own shop? Because like you said, you know, you're the founder of MV Barbers London, which you have your shop in Covent Garden, you have one in Chingford, and I believe before then as well, you said had some other shops. So kind of like tell us about that journey from the transition from working for someone to then, you know, because obviously before having your own shops, you was working elsewhere, I imagine, right?
Yeah. So, so my career started obviously working for my actual uncle, which is obviously my mum's brother. And then from there, you know, I worked for him for many years. I was very loyal. Wasn't on great money, you know. As I said earlier, I was always into cars, so I sort of made more of my money by buying and selling cars. And them days you could park cars on main roads, so I would put a sign up saying car for sale, whatever. So, and then eventually my car fetish got stronger and the cars got better, and you know. But then, you know, I think it was the point where, you know, I was with my uncle for about 6-7 years, and I had to go to my nan, which was obviously my uncle's mum, and literally just say like, Nan, your son's, you know, like, he's not paying me well. And, you know, I'm a top barber, I earn him this much money a day, and, you know, like, I'm still earning peanuts. I'm selling cars to complete my lifestyle. And it was quite funny, because I thought I became a man, you know. I don't want to say rude things, but I thought I became a man, and I grew a pair. And I'll never forget, I wasn't going to work the next day, and I just kept in my bedroom. I just laid on my bed, and my mum came up and she said, your uncle's downstairs, he's waiting for you. And I was like, I'm not working for him no more. And literally I just hear my uncle knocking on the door, because he used to pick us up to take us to work. And I don't know if he asked my mum, where is he or whatever, and then all I could hear is his footsteps coming up and it's knocking on the door and going like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just woke up late. And he was like, you got 5 minutes, get in the car. And that was the end of me thinking I was a man and I grew a pair. So I went straight back to work, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much when I started realizing like, hey, look, I'm a good barber, I can do better than this. And I was quite lucky, because my uncle's shop was always around influential people, you know, all types of people, but people that had money, businesses, entrepreneurs. So my dream wasn't always like as simple as, you know, I just want to get paid and go home. I used to eardrop on conversations and, you know, be inspired by all different characters that came in with different types of money. And I don't want to say what types of money, but, you know, we used to get the likes of like Rod Stewart and Alan Sugar turning up, but we would also have certain gangsters from certain different areas turning up. So, you know, I was always like inspired by making money, as well as the passion for the job. And I was always good at the job because my uncle was very militant. So everything had to be perfect, to the point that I mean, you would know when you come to my salons that my sections have to be clean and tidy. Everything has to be put back a certain way. My tools have to be
specific in a specific way, in a specific order.
Yeah, and that is my OCD that I adapted and inherited from my uncle over the years. And it's quite funny because it was me and his son that worked together mainly, and his son was completely opposite to me. He was messy, he was dirty, and I would actually tidy his section as well. But you know, like moving back to why I started my own business. So as I said, we was always around good people, and I managed to meet a guy that his name was Lee Rooney, and Rooney wasn't actually his real name. It was Zambini, like the actual mafia Zambinis from Italy. And he managed to acquire a shaving brush company from R.A. Rooney's, which is the oldest shaving brush company in the world.
Right.
And you know, like he used to come in the shop, and it was just like, you know, you're really good. Like you're good at shaving, and you're good at doing your job and all that. You know, and I speak to him, and he started saying to me, look, I could get you into True Fit in Hills, which is the oldest barber shop in the world. It's like, I don't know, 204 or 5 years old now. Holds a royal family come in there and all that stuff. So he used to make their shaving brushes. So he used to make for True Fit in Hill, Trumpers, Taylors of Bond Street, Fulton and Masons, Castle Forbes, all the big brands. He used to hand make shaving brushes for them. And he said, look, I'll get you a job with these guys if you want. And it was really funny because I went for an interview, and you got to remember, I'm a young guy that's worked with his family all his life. I'm used to earning no money, making my money from selling cars. And literally this guy's took me to the interview because he obviously knew the boss very well, Alan Broughton, and he happened to be in town because he actually used to live in South Africa, even though he owned True Fit in Hill. And it's really funny because I sat there and this guy looked at me, and look, we was always smartly dressed, so we was used to go into places and being smartly dressed because that's the way it was back then. You know, you was a barber, but you wore a shirt, you wore a tie, you looked smart, you looked the business. You know, we wore waistcoats and stuff like that. People used to, you know, take the mick and say, what, you're a waiter? And I'll be like, no, I'm a barber. And then True Fit in Hill, it was in St. James Street, which it still is now in Mayfair. And I went downstairs into the basement to meet this guy in his big office. And he sort of asked me a few questions, very basic. He said, look, Lee vouches for you. He says, you're the best he's ever seen. How would you feel like having a job here with us? And, you know, being young and a bit naive, and I was like, what'd you pay? Which is
straight away asking for the money.
Which is pretty much what a lot of young barbers will ask you nowadays. Nothing's changed there, but it was like, so what do you pay? And he just looked at me and he goes, well, what do you get paid? And I was like, 150. And he was like, done, we'll do that, right? And the funniest thing was, so you got to remember, this is the elite barbershop which back then was cutting hair for like over £30 and stuff like that. So obviously I'm giving him the figure of my weekly salary or my fortnightly salary, I forgot where it was back then. And this guy's actually giving me this salary per day back then, right? So obviously the first month of my paycheck, I've got the check because it was in the olden days, they used to give you a check in an envelope, and I took it home and I've opened this check and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's giving me £600 for the month. And I'm like, I'm sorry, not for the month, for the week. And obviously it was on a monthly basis, and I was just shocked because I was like, wow, so I was rolling around like I was a millionaire by then, the high performance cars got higher, and the going out and the spending and the shopping, and I started to live a lifestyle in central London. So that was the journey of how I left my uncles going into working with a prestige company. And after doing that for about 3 years or so, I actually started to get itchy feet and just think like, I can do this, like I'm really good. So so at that point I was like, you know, like look, without, you know, I know there's a lot of good people like yourself out there, and you know, there's a lot of you know, good barbers, good educators, you know, good men's haircutters. You know, I just thought to myself, like, I'm good at what I do, so you know, like I really want to step the game up. I want to do my own thing. And because by this time I was an outgoing person, you know, like I just had my wings spread where they were broken for many years, you know, and I was living a lifestyle, because the type of people we were working with in Mayfair back then, you know, like we were working with money people, and you know, like we was getting invited to, you know, like top nightclubs, like the Tramp. We would cut the managers and directors' hair, and they'll give us tables, and you know, like we was working with people that owned yacht companies that built yachts and stuff like that. So you know, if you imagine the type of people that I was going out with, so to be honest, the type of money that I was earning wasn't making a difference to my life. And this is why I pass this on when I'm teaching young hairdressers, young barbers. I'm like, look, it doesn't matter how much money you earn, you'll always find a way to spend that money in a different type of way, you know?
Yeah. So as in, like, the more money you earn, the more money you're going to spend, basically, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I always say, it's like, now, for me, like £100 now is like what £10 used to be for me like 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? The value of it, you know?
Exactly.
It's just kind of like, just because you're like getting more money, you end up spending more money, didn't you?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I would do stuff like, I would do crazy stuff like, you know, as I still do now, I would drive my car to the West End and like literally pay for some, you know, like parking space, like, which back then, you know, people would say to me, how much did you pay for parking in central London? I was like, £5, and they were like, what, £5? Like, you know, like I would do stuff like that, which was a lot of money back then, but people were like, why are you driving to the West End? Like, why don't you take a train and stuff like that? So, you know, I was living the lifestyle, and you know what, to be honest, like I did live a good lifestyle working for these companies. And the good thing with Truth in Hill is they started introducing me to big companies where they had concessions, like in Selfridges, in Fulton and Masons, in Phoenix of Bond Street, and all these big department stores. And I had a really good friend, Graham Barber, which wasn't a barber, so I was really pissed with his surname. This guy was a marketing guy, and he literally used to run Truth in Hill marketing. And me and him used to go out, and I would have to perform live shaves on Selfridges shop floor on a Saturday afternoon. And I'm talking about thousands of people going past you, pushing you and things, you know, like, and I would have to shave. And this is where I got good at doing, you know, like, I'd reckon good at education and, you know, speaking and stuff like that, because of, just purely because of the fact that I was working in a busy environment, and I threw that fear out of me of, you know, people watching me and people talking to me, or I'm talking to them. It just sort of helps you open up a bit. So yeah, the lifestyle working at Truth in Hill was probably, I would say, that helped me find myself who I am in barbering, in the sense that, you know, like other people that I worked with along the way, which I stayed good friends with at barbers, literally they just stayed in their shell, stayed in their barbershops, parked themselves up. Yeah. And it's not for everyone, you know, like yourself, like, you know, you're an international artist, you know, you travel globally, you know, you're great at what you do, but that's not for everyone. You know, I've seen really, really good barbers that me and you even see when we went on our last American trip.
Seems like a bloody lifetime.
Yes, it actually does. With our dear friend Sam Wall, God rest his soul. And you know, like, you know, I was looking at people on stage, and I'm like, yeah, you're good at barbering. I can see what you're doing. You're brilliant at barbering. I'm not going to disrespect anyone or anything, but you know, being on stage or talking to people, or you know, presenting something is not always everyone's cup of tea. Yeah. It's like, you have to want to be, you know, an educator, or you need to be able to speak to people, or relate to people and understand people. So obviously diverting from what you've asked me.
So then obviously, so that was from getting your experience, I guess, from doing these shaves in Selfridges and being, you know, having the opportunity to interact with different people, that's kind of like where your stage presence probably came up.
Yeah.
And confidence.
My confidence, I would say. And
kind of like being thrown in the deep end.
Yeah.
It's like you're either going to sink or swim, isn't it?
And it was really the deep end because, I mean, look, we're going back years here, but if you actually, you know, you're going back to the 90s here, and if you actually go back to the 90s, when you're walking into Selfridges or Fulton and Masons, you know, the Queen shops there, like, you're not just walking through the store and walking to your section to start. You're going through 100 hoops before you get to that point. I mean, you're like, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags, wolf, sir. Like, it is literally, it was a different kettle of fish. And you got to remember, like, I'm this like guy from East London that, you know, not quite hood, but, you know, might as well be compared to them. So, you know, and it was a really funny time in Truefield Hill as well. Like, I'll never forget, like, Prince Albert, which is the Queen's cousin, came in, and it was my first time doing a royal, and I took off his jacket the wrong way, and I didn't even know there was
a right way,
a wrong way of taking someone's coat off. And, you know, like, it was, you know, there was rules like that. You had to wait for your client.
So was that rules from the barbershop you was working with? Okay.
Yeah, the rules from the barbershop. That was every client was treated exactly the same way, regardless of royalty or aristocrats or whoever they were. Everyone was treated the same way. And I got a disciplinary for that because I didn't take off their jacket the right way.
Wow. So then obviously with your experience from your uncle's shop to then going to something that was completely on the other end of the spectrum, I imagine. I guess, what happened? I mean, how long did you last there? Was you starting to teach there? Because I believe, you know, as you're saying, you do education as well. So
yeah, I mean, my teaching didn't really start there as proper teaching. So what sort of happened there was because I was good at what I was doing. I mean, you've got to remember in the late 80s, shaving went out of fashion because of AIDS. So a lot of barbershops stopped shaving. So when I went to Truefield Hill, it was a sort of a 50-50 spin, and it was left up to the barber whether you wanted a shave or not. And, you know, there was a guy there called Jimmy, which, you know, like, he was in his 70 odds when I was there. He was, this is a very interesting point actually, he was actually there for 55 years.
Wow.
Right? So that's the type of time span people used to spend in barbershops, not like, you know, the lifespan of a barber in your shop now is 24 months at the max.
A couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah, at the max. So, you know, like, and then he was shaving, so I was like, yeah, I can shave. So I started shaving as well. And then they got me into teaching because Truefield Hill had a couple of stores in America, in Las Vegas, and also in Toronto. So they started introducing me to shaving, and then they had one that was open in Hong Kong, and then they started introducing, you know, sending their staff to me to teach them how to shave. I wasn't actually teaching, they just wanted to learn how to shave.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, it got to a point where I wanted to bring something different, and I started, you know, not going on hairdressing courses, but getting more interested in how to do, you know, longer hair, hairdressing, colouring and stuff like that. So, you know, like, my auntie was a hairdresser as well, so I spent some time with her just learning how to do a few bits. And I had friends in the industry, and, you know, just one of them guys that wanted to learn everything. And then I decided to look for my own shop in 2000, or just before 2000, tell a lie. And
barbershop or?
Yeah, barbershop, but more with a real twist. Okay. I mean, you know, like, we're talking about 2000 here, which is 21 years ago. So, but I already had the name, and MV. Actually, there's a lot to MV than just the name MV.
You know, one story I want to touch on, like a little bit personal about. I know you'll be open to talk about it, just because I think as well, it's like when someone sees that you have a brand or you have a barbershop, automatically they think that you're very successful, which of course you are very successful. You know, you have your own brands, MV Barbers London, you have your own barber shops, you have your product line, and, you know, you are very successful. But on the road to success, and you've told me this story before, you know, I know you've had some real ups and downs, and you know, even I remember one of the stories you told me was how you actually had to take all your stuff and actually live in your car for a little while.
Yeah, just
and
a couple of days, 2-3 days.
Yeah, so it's like I kind of wanted to touch on that because it's kind of, you know, I think for like some people, when a situation like that happens, that everything comes crumbling down, they could straight away just be like, do you know what, fuck this, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
But then obviously for you, you know, you kind of, whether you use that as fuel, you kind of spun it around and then was like, actually, you know, I want to, you know, so just tell us a little bit about that story, because, you know, for me personally, you know, it's a very inspiring story because it's one of those ones that it's, you know, it sounds like a movie, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, at this stage, I mean, I basically I got married. I obviously had my son, and you know, my son was 2 years old, and you know, everything came tumbling down, and you know, the disagreements came with my ex-wife, and we decided to split and divorce, and yeah, literally just walked out of the house with nothing, and you know, like from the sheer like brokenness and being embarrassed, I sort of, you know, I slept in my car for a couple of days, you know, until I sort of thought like, where do I go? How do I get, you know, like,
where do you go from there?
Where do I go from there, you know? And yeah, I mean, it was a rough time. Like I had a really like, I had a downturn. So you've got to imagine, from a guy that back in the day, like, you know, was earning, you know, money that celebrities were earning, to going to earning nothing was like, you know, it was, you know, it breaks you. Do you know what I mean? And to come back from that, and you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I know this is gonna sound cheesy now, right? All I could really think of was the Rocky movie with the Eye of the Tiger. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you know, like that last one more round, you know, like, and yeah, I mean, I come out of it, and you know, I got myself back up. And, you know, I started saving some money, and, you know, I would always give my money to my mum and say, like, I'm saving for a shop, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, so, you know, I would go back to my mum's and just check that, you know, have I got enough money to open this barbershop now? And she would be like, not yet, son, you still need a little bit more. And, you know, I had a rough idea of how much I needed, you know, how much rents were and deposits. I'd done all my inquiries and stuff. So, you know, I bounced back quite well from, you know, being, you know, quite a broken man in the sense that, you know, like I literally felt like I had to start from scratch. And as I was saying earlier on with a bit of the cheesy Rocky song, it was, you know, like the Eye of the Tiger song actually, you know, helped me sort of get out of it. And I'm not going to lie, even now when I feel a little bit down, I do sort of go back to the Rocky 1, 2, 3, maybe up to about the 5 where Ivan was in, you know, not quite to the latest Creeds, but, you know.
And Creed's your son, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it does sort of inspire me, if you like, or it does sort of like just give me that boost that I need to think like, you know, just that one more round, you know, like let me get in there one more time.
It ain't over till it's over.
Yeah, exactly that. And you know, and eventually, you know, like we got to the figure we wanted, and you know, I was ready to find a location and whatever. But the hardest thing was finding a location. And as I said, we was lucky because there wasn't barbershops everywhere. Like you're talking about 2000 here, or just before like 1999, and there wasn't barbershops everywhere. You know, barbershops are popping up everywhere. You know, like no tomorrow. You know, whether they can cut hair or not, that's a different debate, a different subject for a different episode or a different series that we might be doing.
Yeah.
But it was hard to find a location, and I mean,
so what year were you talking now?
So I'm sort of end of '99, looking for this location to literally open a store, and yeah. So I'm really like, I'm driving around. Obviously, you know, where I was driving from, you know, living in Chingford originally, and driving all the way to central London. I always had my eyes open anyway. You know, looking at locations where stations were, and I really never found nothing that caught my eye. And I used to sort of drink out locally in Chingford, even though I've never been a big drinker, as you know.
Yeah.
You know, 2 Budweisers or 3 JDs, and that's me. So I was drinking in our local in Chingford Mount, and you know, I was with all the boys, and you know, I still used to cut a lot of the guys' hair locally and stuff like that. And you know, I was always in with the crowd and always in with the boys, and you know, we was all in the same sort of wavelength. And yeah, one of them it was like, why don't you just open in Chingford? Then we don't have to travel. And I was like, why would I open in my own hometown? It was like, well, you know everyone here, so why wouldn't you? And I was like, yeah, why not? And yeah, that's when I found my location in Chingford. And you know, we done the deal, gave the deposits, and literally like, you know, like the shop was a mess. I mean, it was an old greengrocer's that had been closed down for years. Like the shop was derelict. I'm talking about.
Are we talking? This is the shop that's in now.
Still there in Chingford since 2000.
Yeah.
You know, the shop's crest and logo was actually made and hand drawn actually by my very good dear cousin Huss, which we used to call him Snoop Dogg, not because he was a rapper, but he used to have long curly hair, which used to middle part, and then, you know, have these 2 pigtails. Yeah, and he used to look like Snoop Dogg, the actual dog, not. And he was a graphic designer back then, so he actually drew what I wanted him to draw, and that's the crest that we have now. You know, you're familiar with it, but others ain't. So yeah, and then obviously later on I added a few more things to the crest to strengthen it, and you know, rebranded our logo. But you know, like the most important thing with us finding the location is the actual name Envy and the store come at different times. So I always knew that my brand would be called Envy, and you know, Envy had a lot of you know, if you read into the word envy, it just doesn't mean envious. There's a lot to envy than just someone being envious of you. And it purely wasn't the fact that I wanted people to be envious of me, but it's more the fact to just say that I'm here, I've made it, and I've built this brand without you. And, you know, you can't keep me down. And I've literally started from the bottom, like my man Kevin says, and I've worked myself to the top, and it was all done with hard graft and hard work.
Because you don't have any investors within the shop. This is all like 100% yours, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always never been investors, always 100% mine, but always grateful, and gratitude goes out to my mum, my family, like my uncle who I always say gave me the golden wristband of barbering. I can never thank him enough for that. And also my other uncle, who was a builder, who both my uncles now are retired in Cyprus. They've all gone back. And bless my uncle, he always helped me with building, you know, never charged me, and put in all the hard graft. And even when we was doing Covent Garden up, he flew all the way back as an old retired man, and still done, you know, he done my shop for me in Covent Garden as well. So we found the location in Chingford. As I said, it was derelict. It threw me off. A young guy, you know, got all this money to kit out a shop and walks in and walks straight through the floorboard. So like, from being at the bottom to then walking into a shop that is just derelict. Yeah, like literally derelict. Like walking in there and thinking, oh my God, what have I just got myself into? You know, like wooden shutters that needed ripping out, no shop front because it was an old greengrocer's. To then stripping back the wooden cladding around the building. So if you can imagine the old-fashioned greengrocers that would sell fruit and veg outside as well as inside, you know, like really, really derelict. To them finding that the Irish J had been taken out and the building was about to collapse. yeah, so we way overspent budget, and thanks to my family, they all chipped in and you know, like helped me get my shop ready. And you know, like that was the start of MV Barbers, and you know what it meant to me. And you know, even my crest has a lot of meaning to it. With, if you study into my vest and crest and look into the detailing, you know, like
all the sentimental meaning behind it all. Yeah.
I mean, the initials in there, N and a V, obviously stands for MV. Then you've got a big S through it, which is my name, Sheriff. Then you've got an A at the top with a star, which is my son's name, which is Ahmet, which, as you know, met, and you know, he's a 4th generation barber. He's my eyes and ears, and he's my right hand man.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm blessed to have such a good son helping and working with me. And yeah, and then the 2 stallions on the side were literally drawn from, you know, the Ferrari emblem of the stallions. So like meaning strength and everything. So, you know, my crest has meaning to me personally. That's why I'm more sentimental about my crest and the MV name rather than putting Sheriff as my name.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, the shop was created in 2000.
And then from there, so obviously you've got Covent Garden.
Yeah.
So with Covent Garden, you know, as I do know you, I know there was other shops before Covent Garden. So kind of like tell us, like, you know, from 2000 where the MV Barber brand was kind of born to what's happened from 2000 till, let's just say to present, because then that will actually lead to what's going on with this whole situation of COVID, you know, because, you know, it'll be interesting to, you know, hear kind of like from your point of view as a barbershop owner, you know, having done education as well, to really how COVID's kind of like, you know, one affected you, and kind of how you've actually, you know, diverted and trying to work with the situation, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, going back a little bit to MV Barbers Chingford, obviously the first store. So you've got to remember, I've worked with what I consider one of the greatest barbers I've ever lived and seen. You know, even when my uncle was retiring at like, you know, 62, 63, he was still banging out haircuts and fades better than most people that can cut hair and fade now, you know. Like, at the end of the day, I have to, you know, praise and I'm honored to be taught by such a great barber. Back then, you know, in barbering, when my uncles started barbering, you was not allowed to have your own name, because obviously coming from a Cypriot background as well. So my uncle Dave, Dave the barber, his name wasn't actually Dave, it was Sedat, and everyone was known, he was known as Dave. And you know, my other uncle that used to work with him, his name was Hassan, but you weren't allowed to have Hassan in the shop, so he was called Michael. You know, and you know, and the other one was called Jesse. You know, they called him Jesse James, but his name was Irfan. You know, like, you wasn't allowed to have, like, I probably wouldn't have been allowed in their era in the 60s, the 50s. Like, I wouldn't probably be allowed to have Sheriff. You know, so it was crazy. So, but I was honoured to be taught by my uncle, which was, you know, a fantastic barber. So, you know, being taught by him and then moving from him, with all respect to him, I loved him to bits and he taught me everything I know. But it was with his talent that I grew my talent. But then I think going and working in central London and working for such a high-end premium, you know, premiership type of barbershop, where literally, like, you know, prices back then were some of the prices that people are not even charging now. It threw me to a completely different, you know, ecstasy of barbering. You know, I loved my job so much, I was passionate about it. And people used to say, like, you know, how can your number one all over be better than any other barbers? And, you know, I always use the motto of, you know, some of us make love and some of us just, you know, don't. It's simple. But, yeah, so basically, MV Barbers was created on something different, and it was created on, not gonna lie, inspiration of men's hair cutting and hairdressing, because I was passionate about cutting hair, and I was inspired about, you know, the likes of Tony and Guy and Vidal Sassoon and the creativity and all that. Do I know how to hairdress? Do hairdressing? I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but you know, I use their inspiration, I use their, you know, their ways, their talent. So I sort of, you know, adapted the hairdressing life and bring it to barbering. But you're talking about 2000 here, 21 years ago. Some of you guys weren't even born 21 years ago, yeah? So like, I sort of bring the West End to Chingford, as in style, looks. You know, like we was doing what they did in West End. We were serving cappuccinos. We were serving brandies and whiskies and beers. I mean, 21 years ago, you're serving things like that in a Chingford salon. But then the times that we used to get for cutting, like back in the day, it was 4 haircuts an hour. That was your time period. If you couldn't do 4 haircuts an hour, you was out the door. You know, you'd be lucky to get away with 3 haircuts an hour. But that's the way barbering was. Yeah. So you gave out a good service, but you gave out a quick service. You worked on speed. So I bring West End to Chingford, and I bring what I translated, wasn't men's hairdressing, wasn't my barbering. It was what I called back then men's grooming. And it really was men's grooming, because I stuck a hairdressing twist into barbering, and I really made a different service. And, you know, back then I was charging big money, because you got to remember, I've just come from Mayfair earning big money. I wasn't about to walk into Chingford and, you know, people were cutting hair back then for £5. You know, I was cutting hair back then in 2000 for like £12.50, £15, £20 back then, you know? So, bit of Turkish tea. So back then, you know, that was big money, and people used to come in and be like, you know, there was no appointments, it was still walk-ins, and it would be like, well, how much is a haircut? And when you used to tell people, it's like, you know, are you joking? Like, you're not in the West End. And I was like, no, but I bring West End to you. Yeah, yeah. And I used to be so confident that I'd be, look, take a seat in my chair, have a haircut with me, or whatever you want to have done, and if you don't like it, I will give you £10 and you can walk out. And, you know, that's how cheeky and confident I was. So, you know, Chingford was created, and, you know, it went well, it was busy, but, you know, like my character is now, as you know me, I can't sit still. I've got to keep moving. You know, I'm always thriving on excitement, or, you know, always, you know, thriving on the next move, or how to go up, or, you know, you've come back down again, like how do we get back on our feet? So, yeah, I mean, I was the only barbershop back then in, you know, in 2000 that was selling men's products. I was a TG agent back then, which TG would only give to hair salons. Yeah. And, you know, they were giving to me, and they were like, you know, you're the only salon. I used to sell Paul Mitchell products. So, you know, I was selling all high-end, you know, West End style products in my salon, you know, and, you know, someone would come in and buy a product that was worth the same amount as their haircut, which was unheard of, you know. But the shop was cool, you know, I had, you know, good staff and good receptionists, and run it, you know, professionally. And then it was really weird. I gotta tell you this story. I was cutting hair one day, and I'm not saying I'm dodgy, but I'm a barber, and we all know what barbers used to do pre-COVID. So guys, stop that and get with the program, yeah? I was cutting hair, and this very, very smart woman called Jasmine Scaife came in, and she was in a suit and everything, and she had like a semi-briefcase looking bag. It weren't a lady's handbag, it looked like a briefcase. And obviously this was a typical men's salon. So, you know, it weren't the times that women did walk into barbershops to get haircuts. And I'm sort of looking at her through the mirrors and like, who's this woman in a grey pinstripe suit?
Yeah.
You know, and we all know who wears pinstripe suits, right? So I'm looking at this woman, and she's looking at me, and one of the guys finished, and he said, "Can I help you, madam? Are you getting a haircut?" And she said, "No, I'm waiting for him." You know, pointing at me, and I'm like really getting red. I'm thinking, okay, this might have come on top now because the tax man's in my shop.
Yeah, or tax
Right?
lady.
Yeah, the tax lady's in my shop. Not though I'm dodgy or done anything wrong. And so I finished, and you know, I took the lady into the staff room, and you know, I said, "How can I help you?" And she's like, "I've come here on behalf of the Joshua Galvin Academy, and basically I'm headhunting you." And I'm like, "Okay, so what's that? You know, I don't even understand. What is that?" So she said, "We're basically a hairdressing academy. We're based in Bethnal Green back then, and we would like you to come in and, you know, have an interview about doing some barbering education for us." So I was like, "Yeah, but I'm just a barber. I just cut hair." She said, "Would you please, you know, accept our invitation to come and have an interview with us?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, cool." So, you know, I don't know when it was, but I went there and, you know, sat down and had this interview, and it was quite interesting, really, because you know, I knew nothing about education, you know, like Plaza Aid, but obviously I knew who Joshua Galvin was because I knew who Vidal Sassoon was, and back then I used to get the Hairdressing Journal even back then, and there was no Barber magazine, guys. It was just hairdressing. And yeah, so literally I knew who the guy was and who the company was. I went there, did my interview. They literally said, "We want you to do barbering education. We'll teach you to become an educator. You can teach us how to do barbering." And that's how my my education career started as a professional educator, was actually teaching barbering education.
Was that for hairdressers or for barbers, or?
That was literally for anyone. Like,
Okay.
there was no hairdressing standards, by the way, by that time still.
So at this point, was you're working in your barbershop in Chingford, and someone come over, headhunted you in order to deliver education for them?
Yep,
Okay.
barbering education. And yeah, she basically said that we heard that you're good at what you do. It turned out that...
So I guess this is probably where the real education of barbering
started. Yeah. So we were, you know, I was amongst, you know, one of the first to help barbering push in the right direction as far as MVQ education goes. You know, it was mainly sitting guilds and VCTC back then. Sorry, not VC, yeah, VCTC and sitting guilds. So yeah, it was barbering education for them. And then going back to my shop, you know, like, it was great, but as I said, I get itchy feet. So I'm like, I need to do something. So I started doing education once a week for them, then it went to twice a week. And then they started, because obviously with Joshua Galvin's connections in the hairdressing industry, I started getting requests for all salons that were working with them. So obviously you had the likes of Charles Worthington and obviously some spin-offs of Vidal Sassoon salons, which I don't want to mention their names. And you know, like I've done a lot of education for a lot of big brand companies, you know, and then I started just doing day courses here and there for these big companies, just for their salons and their staffs, like CPD training. Then we started doing like little events and little shows at the Excel, because there's all
like Salon International, or were you doing different ones?
Not yet. It was more like, you know, they do the Careers Day ones as well there. So I started doing the Careers ones, and that's when I really started to do stage and platform, you know, education and stuff like that. And then in the meantime, as I was getting better, then I started, you know, I sort of found a little bit of a, not hole in a market, but just a way of getting good staff, which would be to take a young person and educate them. And because of my connection now with the college, I could take my own staff on, educate them in the college, and then bring them to my salon, which worked perfect because it was a win-win for me, because I was like, wow, this is great. And obviously, as we had more staff and we was educating more people, this is when we moved to the next step of opening the salon. So the first salon after Chingford wasn't actually Covent Garden. It was Romford in Hornchurch. So we done that, which the guy was my manager, and we opened Hornchurch, and then from there I decided to open Covent Garden, which Covent Garden is where, for the first time in my life, I put my guard down and decided to get an investor to come in with me, and basically I thought it, I'm not saying this is wrong if anyone does this, but I thought an investor would be the correct way to grow into the market that I was so inspired by when I was at Truthy and Hill, and then working with all these brand names like all the companies that I had to work with in central London, delivering education. I thought that Covent Garden, being such a big brand and the rents like, you know, astronomical prices, I needed an investor. So I got an investor to come in and everything, and then the last day before we signed the lease and everything, they pulled out on me.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
Yeah. So that was just like another blow, and I was like, how can you pull?
So
you know,
this was 5 years ago or 6 years ago now?
6 years ago, yeah.
I even remember when you got the shop and you were showing me, and I remember it was still boarded up, and you're like, have a look through here. And then I remember that story, telling me about that. So then from that, because you have Covent Garden now, I mean, like, did you start hearing that Rocky song again? And you thought, you know what,
definitely. Like, I think we was up to Rocky 5 now with Ivan, and you know when Rocky does the comeback to where he goes to Russia and does that raw workout with the wood on his back and everything, you know, like, I think that Rocky song was there this time, I'm not gonna lie. And and I decided, you know what, fuck, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna do this on my own. Like, I don't believe investors. It's not for everyone, and I was like, right, I'm going to go for this on my own. But now I had to deliver a presentation to landlords that are sharks, and I'm like, you know, I don't even know how to do this stuff. So I just self-taught myself. I done my presentation, I went up there, I told them straight up, my investors are pulled out, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I've come up the ranks. And they said, yes, we'll do it. Obviously, it was a lot more money I had to find, but again, thankful for my family that always backed me, and you know, again, cashed in on everything, like watches, cars, you know, my trainers, my Hugo Boss suits, literally like cash in on everything, and just went for it, and that's how Covent Garden was created. And then with Covent Garden, we branded the whole branding with the MV products and everything. So
so that's where the MV products kind of started to happen. Because you thought, right, okay, got a nice little flagship store now. It's in central London. And then you've obviously got the downstairs as well, which kind of acts as like your academy as well.
That's right. So I mean, the products, we started doing it on a smaller scale just slightly before that, because obviously we had the 2 shops, so we wanted to have our products out there. But then when we went to Covent Garden, because it was a touristic area and there was a lot more, you know, happening around there, we felt like we needed products. So I mean, education, you know, so as I said, I started educating in Joshua Galvin's, and they obviously used to have me go out to a lot of branded salons. And, you know, then when Covent Garden came along as well, we started doing our own education with the barbering side of stuff. So we would do private courses, you know, we'd do MVQ courses. But but along the way, obviously, I was doing education for L'Oreal as well, which has always been a very, a good platform for me. And, the team at L'Oreal has always been, really good and supportive, and, always helped with new ideas for education. And then, Covent Garden helped us, push the education platform to a different level in the sense of real barbering.
Yeah.
But always the most important thing for us with education was actually passing our knowledge on and our passion of what we did as barbers, like real life shop experience. And, with the people we used to teach, we used to let them, come up after the education classes would end and they could spend some time in the salon.
Shadow the other barbers.
Yeah, just, shadow the other barbers and, just see what the real side of barbering was. I mean, the downturn in education for me was obviously everyone for their themselves and what they want to do and how they want to do it. But I don't believe in bringing down prices. And, when people start to deliver education like it's a Happy Meal at McDonald's, to me, it's like, you're leaving no love in education, in the sense that, we would have people calling us and trying to, ask us if we'll reduce our prices because a certain academy was doing it at this price, or a certain academy. And, maybe they can afford to do that because they've got an investor. Maybe, their dad bought the building for them, or maybe there's a group of them and they don't need to earn as much as, we needed to. Yeah. So the education got harder towards the end of the 6 years, to be honest. And we were taking less and less people on in our classes because there was too much competition. And the competition wasn't real competition. It was more like, it felt like the chicken shop on the corner that was up against KFC,
There's no real competition for you guys,
so, it just made me feel like the education on that level of what we were doing in barbering, like we scaled down on it in a big way, but still obviously kept our relationship with L'Oreal, which is, one of my favorite educations that I do, because it's just, I love the way they work. I love the fact that they have people that are passionate that come on their courses. So, it's been hard. I mean, coming towards the end, before all of this stuff started happening, it was getting tighter. A lot more barbershops had opened. Again, I wouldn't say that I'm ever threatened by other barbershops and what they do or how they do it. Everyone does their own style, or they create their own look or their own vibes or whatever they do, which is great. I just don't like people that come into the industry and ruin the industry because they have no passion. They think barbering is easy. They think it's meant to be just fun, and there's no customer service there. Without being disrespectful to a lot of the people that I've seen cut hair, and I am one of them guys that I'll go to barbershops. I'll go to different barbershops, have a haircut, I'll have a shave, I'll see how they cut hair, not because I'm threatened by them, because I want to see what's going on. I want to see like if there's something that I can introduce to my salon. But to be truthful, there's a lot of them that I would say that have no passion. They just do it because they don't even know why they're doing it. And that's a shame. That's one thing that, it'll be nice to take some of them people back 20 years and put them in where we had to come up the ranks and be, an apprentice in a real barbershop.
So like, obviously, that being said, with your whole journey of, your ups and your downs, having owned different barbershops, under MV Barbers, any advice for anyone that's wanting to kind of, go off, pursue, get their own barbershop? Perhaps they're working in the barbershop now for someone and they want to do their own thing. I mean, any advice or tips that you would give anyone?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking about today and current, 2021, I would say think very carefully about opening a business, not because of what you can do as a barber or my confidence or your confidence in your own cutting abilities or your business mind or anything. I would just say it's a very dangerous time to make a move with any type of business. But if I was gonna, say that we're back to normal times and you wanna, you wanna open your own barbershop, I'd say, there's key factors here. Education is key. If you have no foundation and you have no education behind your barbering, it's great that you started off in your kitchen and cutting your friend's hair and your neighbor's hair and your self-taught barber. That's fine. That's, but obviously a lot of you guys would have went on to educate yourselves in the correct manner like we all do later on in life, because that's the right thing to do. So I think you need education behind you all the time. Secondly, I think that to be a businessman, you have to learn to differentiate between I am the boss, not in a big-headed way, not because I wear a boss t-shirt or a boss, pair of trainers, but I am the boss because I am a businessman and it's me that's going to drive this barbershop forward with my team, and any business, whether it be a barbershop or not a barbershop, every business needs a team. A football team is a team, McDonald's has a team, like any industry that you're looking at has a team of people that will bring a vibe to the place, bring, different values in and different education or different ways of cutting. But the one thing that's really important, which I see a lot of newcomers or barbershop owners that just open a barbershop, they just think all you need is a mirror, a chair, and a pair of clippers, whether it is, a Chemi pair or whether it's a Wall, obviously brands like Panasonic, people just think that's all you need to open a barbershop. It's not. You need a lot more than that. So you need to have, the ability to be a shepherd or a sheep. You either lead the flock or you follow with the flock. Like at the end of the day, not everyone is a boss. Not everyone can be a leader. Not everyone knows how to move a business forward. And if you don't, obviously, even if it's self-educated, if you don't educate yourself and you don't actually, look into how to run a business, it's not like it is in the olden days where, let's just get a barber chair and start cutting hair. You got tax to pay, you got national insurance to pay, you got VAT to pay, like you've got your rent, your rates, your bills. You've got so many more avenues to what it would have been in the 80s and 90s. We're moving into a digital era, and even though people say, but barbers are never going to be affected by that, but we are, because we're now all getting paid by card. We are now all online. We now have websites, we now have social media, like we depend on this to run our businesses. So someone coming into the business right now, I would say at least educate yourself to, first of all, know how to be a proper barber and a hairdresser, and also like make sure that you know how to run a business, because it's not just open the door and start cutting.
Yeah. So obviously, they're very wise words that you've given, and like even for myself, having my own business, hearing that, it's, I couldn't agree with you anymore. It's, I think there's a lot to owning a business and doing a startup than a lot of people actually think there is. And, it's one of those ones that's nice and refreshing. And obviously hearing your story to how you started off to what you're doing now. Yeah. So that kind of leads me to my next question, because what are you doing now? Here we're in lockdown in the UK, obviously COVID-19, a year on, how's that kind of affected your business, from, let's just say from when we first locked down and closed down in March to then reopening again in July and then having to close back down in November and then reopen again, and now we're back on lockdown. So it's kind of that circle where, it's like a never ending story, isn't it? So kind of tell us about your experiences, your troubles.
Troubles and troubles.
Yeah.
Troubles and troubles.
Yeah, no troubles going on at the moment. But like,
exactly.
Kind of how you've adapted, let's just say, because obviously you've had to adapt to this whole situation.
I'm gonna have to do a yoga move for this one.
And breathe and breathe.
Yeah. So I mean, look. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. First of all, the most important thing is mental health for everyone. You know, like I wish everyone all the best in these hard times for their businesses and their well-being. That's the most important thing, and we should always remember that. You know, like we should always remember that. You know, there's people out there that don't want to talk or don't know how to talk, and you know, like me and you have lost a dear friend. You know. You knew Sam a lot longer than me, but Sam was one of them guys that everyone knew he used to talk and chat and, you know, the life of the party. And, you know, he couldn't reach out to anyone to tell them really how he actually felt. So that's the main thing. Look, have I had hard times with COVID? Yeah, I mean, look, when they announced it in January, I would say was probably when they started rocking the boat in 2020. You know, my son, which is my right-hand man in the business and looks after our main salon that, you know, brings in a good income for us, was away in Thailand with one of my main barbers from Covent Garden, Michael, and you know, they were in a debate, like, do we come back, don't we come back, are we going to be locked out, you know, like there was all this going on, and I was like, no, it's fine guys, just enjoy your holiday. Like we extended their holiday for another 3 weeks and you know, they were having fun out there, and you know, no, it's only a flu, don't worry about it. And then obviously bang, March came and he announced that he was closing us down, you know, and obviously as everyone knows, they closed us down, and it was 2 weeks, then it was 3 weeks, and then it dragged on. And you know, it was like it was never ending, and you know, me and you used to catch up, and I used to call you used to call me, check up on us. And you know, I've got, you know, Jason Hunt from America, one of my dear friends that used to work for Vida Sassoon as well. He used to regularly check in on me, I used to check in on him. You know, like you know, good friends. Like we just looked out for each other. So them, you know, them times were really hard as well. You know, Mike Taylor as well from the Great British Barbers. He always checked in with me. I checked in with him. So, you know, it's hard because not knowing when you can open, even now with lockdown, is really hard. But the one thing I would say is, if you're a businessman, this is what it's about. Can you walk the walk? Can you talk the talk? Can you actually get through good times and hard? Because let's face it, we're not going to say what, but me and you have had some good times and we've earned some money, right? Like you know, you've traveled the world, I've traveled the world, you know, and we've earned good money, and we've spent good money. You know, we've met in the best places, and we've met in, you know, the likes of you know, Starbucks and McDonald's. So, you know, it is what it is. But you know, coming back to, you know, COVID and coming back to how did we survive, or how are we surviving? Yeah, like mentally straining. As a businessman, frustrating. Got staff to pay, you know, got bills to pay. So when they told us we can come back in July, it was great. You know, we went out. We didn't quite spend as much as other salon owners or barbers, you know. We didn't have a budget of 20,000 to spend. But
you didn't spend £20,000 to make your barbershop COVID safe.
No,
sure?
we didn't spend that much.
Does it cost you 20 grand to like?
No, we found a place. I don't know if I can say
20
this.
20 grand on masks you spent, was it?
I don't know if I can say this on, you know, live TV at the moment.
You can say whatever the hell you want to say.
But yeah, we found a place called eBay, so we managed to find things at a very reasonable price. And there's also AliExpress and Alibabas, yeah. So yeah, so we made our place COVID safe, you know, for our customers, and you know, sanitizers outside like everyone else. You know, the signs at the front of the shop. But what really made it work for us, and this is a little bit like, this is where the two, you know, Envy Barbers London is one brand and everything, but obviously we've got two areas here. We've got Chingford, which is East London, very mixed clientele, and then we've got the high end, which is Covent Garden. So Covent Garden has always been an appointment place, but appointments with no prepay. So obviously we was COVID safe now, we're not opened yet, we're still pre-planning how are we going to move forward with, you know, adapting to clients feeling safe when they come into our salon, because we all queued up at, you know, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Lidl's and everywhere else. So like we was very cautious on how do we move forward to the next platform basically, and move to the next direction. So where we was familiar with appointments in Covent Garden, the one thing we noticed with appointments in Covent Garden, which we cut hair for £55 in central London, we found that there was a lot of people that would make an appointment at 5 o'clock on a certain day with myself or any other barber, and just not turn up, you know, and it's a regular client. So the next time they come in, they'll be like, oh yeah, sorry Sheriff, I didn't turn up last time. I was stuck in a meeting, or I had to rush off home. No phone call to cancel, no real apology. Thank you very much, I've just lost £55. And I might have had a client coming in at, say, you know, 10 minutes after this guy's appointment was, and it would be like, well, how long do I wait for this guy to turn up? I've tried calling him, there's no answer, no reply to emails. So I would lose another client. So where I could have replaced that client, I've now lost my existing client and the client that could have walked in and actually potentially had his hair cut.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we was looking at all these, you know, like booking apps and stuff like that. And fair play to all of them. We looked into them and they're all like pretty reasonable, and, you know, that they're all fairly priced, and, you know, they all do the marketing and the advertising and whatever. But there was one guy that captured me. His name was Damien from Squire. And he was just persistent. I mean, he dropped me Instagrams, he dropped me, you know, emails. I don't know where he got my number from. I know it's on my website, but he texts me, and this guy just won't go away. And I was like, get off my shoe, like, get off me, like, you know, like one of these guys. But yeah, I spoke to him from Squire, and I was like, look, what can you do for me that anyone else can't? So he said, look, let me get a meeting with the technical team. I said, no. I want to speak to them. I want to speak to you. You're the guy that's selling this to me. I want to speak to you. So I spoke to him. He explained exactly what he did. And as a business owner, being in business for over 20 years, I know what I want in my system because I use up-to-date systems. Unlike a lot of barbershops that just use a piano-style till, we've always had, you know, till systems like hairdressers. So he told me what his app does, and then I asked him if it can do this, can you add this to it, can you add that to it? And he said, right, now let's get the technical team involved and we'll have a Zoom meeting. We spoke to a couple of guys like Gerard and a few of the other guys, and they said, yeah, we can implement that, we can do this, and we can also build you an app, okay? And we can do that on Android, we can do that on smartphones. We can actually do your appointment system however you want. And that's what captured me, was I could make my appointment system to work for me in any way that I wanted. And that's what was the important question. It wasn't actually, from that point, it wasn't the money. It wasn't how much is this going to now cost me. It was the fact that anything as a businessman I could think of, like, what can this system do for me? It did. Yeah. Now, I know about business inside out. I mean, you know, from the back end of it, to the appointments, to collecting the data, you know, to making customers feel comfortable. Now, I've got to take you back, because this will work for Covent Garden, easy. But how does this work for a barbershop in East London, which is 50-50 with, you know, hardcore young rappers, yeah, that don't actually rap, to, you know, your middle class, and to a few of your, you know, maybe aristocrats and whatever, right? To mums that are coming in with their kids. So this had to work for everyone. And now we're moving to a shop that never had appointments to now tell everyone, hold up guys, you can't come in, it's appointment only. We had to get this message across, and we had to get it across quick, because I don't know if you remember, but when he announced it in July that we was going back, he literally gave us under a week to be ready for.
Yeah, it was real quick, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, obviously we COVID safed it before, because we knew from supermarkets and, you know, all the other shops that were, you know, doing all the, you know, COVID safe stuff. So, and to be honest, Squire ticks all boxes, and they actually really went beyond and further than they could. In adapting the appointment system to work for me and my salon. And I explained to them about Chingford, that people don't like waiting, the cancellations, blah, blah, blah. And they basically said to me, look, you can have people prepay, and that will solve your problem. And that was it for me. So basically where it's all prepaid. So we introduced the prepaid booking system, allowing people a 4-hour cancellation period, or you lose your money. And to be honest, I would not go back on it. Like Squire for us, especially for Chingford and Covent Garden, actually saved our business to the point of Boris and his 3 bellends closing us down. So it
gave you the control to be able to, you know, have that security that you know that if someone's not going to turn up, you're still not going to lose that money from that. From a business owner's point of view, like probably the best thing, like you said.
It's the best thing, and we had to put our prices up. Hopefully, like everyone else had to. It allowed me to introduce my barbers back slowly, because I could see their appointment time. So we all came back with shortened hours. And as we were getting busier, we would open 1 more hour in the morning and 1 more hour in the evening. So we worked with the app that allowed us to conduct our business in a different way that we've never done before. So I mean, it worked great for us. And then Boris shut us down again. Why? So.
And then from that then, so obviously the ups and downs, so was open from July till November, shut down again in November, then reopen again from December, shut down again like in, I don't know, what was it, just before Christmas?
19th of December to be precise. And it was 3:30 in the afternoon with 5 barbers working flat out. Fully booked until the 24th of December. All of my staff agreed, because of the November lockdown, that they would work at any time of the evening as long as bookings came in. And this is where we could open up the app. So we would do until 8 o'clock, then 9 o'clock, then 10 o'clock. So it was fully booked until the 24th of December. And then when we came back on the 29th, we was fully booked until the 31st. And that night on the 19th, I'd never forget, I went home and I sat on that computer, and I had to sit there manually pressing refunds on everyone's bookings because we weren't going to get to do them the next day. And it broke my heart, because it was thousands of pounds that we lost out on. But, you know, it's just amazing how Squire helps move your business to the next level.
So obviously with that now, we're still in lockdown.
We are indeed.
We are still in lockdown. So what?
Social distancing.
Obviously, come on.
1 metre and a half.
Exactly. That extra half really counts.
It does.
So what, you know, how have you been trying to keep yourself busy, occupied, sane, you know, because this time around with this lockdown, I think for everyone, you know, is a lot more difficult in the sense that we know what it's all about, but then the weather's horrendous, too cold outside to like go on a walk somewhere else. It just feels really weird and strange at this moment in time, because then you've got a lot of people that's abiding by the rules, but then a lot of people that are just like, no, you know, so this, you know, doing what we want to do, and then cases going up and down. Like, how have you, you know, do you see that light at the end of the tunnel? Do you have things in mind that you want to do when we get back and going again?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing I'd like to say before I even answer that question is, this is a national lockdown, right? This is no joke. This is a national lockdown. Now,
And this
I
is
know,
obviously work.
yeah, this is
This
work.
is essential work.
Now, I know where I'm going when I'm going to Tesco's to do my shopping. I want to know where everyone else is going and why I'm sitting in traffic every time I leave my house at a different time to go to Tesco's, right? That's the first thing I want to know. But answering your question is this: am I keeping sane? Well, yes, I'm trying to keep motivated and sane. Sanity is a very difficult thing to do in these current climates, the weather, the actual lockdown, the reason why they lock us down. Do I believe in COVID? Yes, I do. It's real and it's deadly and it does kill people. Not just the disease, but mental health, suicides and everything else. It does kill people in all different ways, okay? But at the same time, it's a hard one. Keeping sane is not easy because you literally are limited to what you can do. Then you've got the business sector where you're thinking about, when am I going to open my business? Am I going to open my business? Am I going to survive to open my business? Yeah, it's all very well that we're all getting grants. And if you're not getting grants, you're getting handouts or universal credits, or you're getting charities or whatever. Some of us are maybe not getting anything. But this is why you need to be employed or own your own business and run it correctly. So move to the next direction. But I am, like everyone else, finding it hard this time round. Do I think there's light at the end of the tunnel? Guys, this is the United Kingdom, man. We've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. We'll always make it through the tunnel.
Okay, so last question for you, which you have no clue which I'm going to ask you.
Oh,
Right, okay, so basically I just
making
want to
me
ask
nervous
you,
now.
Do you know what, to be honest with you, like, if you watched the first one, I basically I'm going to ask everyone the same question. So, last meal, it needs to consist, so this is nothing to do with anything, it's just about your personality. So last meal needs to consist of a starter, main and a dessert. What would it be? It's your last supper.
It's my last meal.
Last one ever. Last one
Really?
Ever. Yeah.
Oh,
What would it be?
wow.
So starter, main and dessert.
Start and main dessert.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So a lot of people ain't gonna know this one, but you know, like a lamb's head soup with lamb's brain in it. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where does that originate from? That is so
That
random.
is Turkish, and
Okay,
that is from Cyprus and Turkey.
Okay.
Loads of vinegar in it and some chili flakes.
Yeah, I've
yeah?
never tried that before.
Yeah,
I need to
beautiful.
try it. I need to try that. You need to
Yeah.
get me to try it with you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Did your
yeah.
mum do it, did she?
No, actually, she did do it for my friend a few weeks ago. But no, I mainly get that in restaurants because it's not really something. Because you actually do have to cook lamb's head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so obviously you're not a vegan or a vegetarian.
I am a vegan. I do have salad with my kebabs. Yeah, but I also enjoy the meat, which yeah.
Okay, so that for starter, and what would your main be?
What, you know me, I'm a kebab man. Like, I like a big juicy kebab, mate. Like, and it ain't your grizzly kebab shop. I like, you know, the places I take you.
Yeah.
The Turkish platter that comes out with all the chicken kebabs and the lambs and the köftes and the chops, and I love meat. I'm not a vegetarian, guys. No offense, but you know.
Okay, and then what about for dessert? What would it be?
Come on, you know it's patlava. Patlava, mate. Like,
You're just Turkish food.
oh,
basically.
well, look, come on, man. You know it's got flavour. You know,
No,
and it's
I'm
healthy.
Yeah, healthy one
Yeah.
because it's got honey on it.
Well, the dessert's not healthy, but a little Turkish tea after.
Nice.
You know,
So it's full on Turkish.
it's full on Turkish for me. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So guys, once again, Sheriff, thank you so much for joining me in the
Thank
chair.
you, Kevin.
It's been a real pleasure talking to one of my closest and dearest friends.
Yeah.
Until next time, guys, thank you once again, and I'll see you next time.